Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with ATBBQ.com, and today I'm making a grilled tri-tip steak sandwich. So here in a little bit, we're gonna be grilling up this big, beautiful tri-tip roast from Creekstone Farms. But before we can get into that, we've got a couple other things to work on. And I wanna start with the tomato jam. Now this tomato jam's a crazy cool condiment. It's sweet, it's tangy, it's a little bit spicy once it's all cooked down, and it's gonna go great on this sandwich because there's so many things going on. This is just one layer of the flavors, but it's got so much flavor all on its own. Now let me show you what we're working with. Now obviously you need your sweetness when you're making a jam, so we've got brown sugar, we've got our tomatoes here, we've got some garlic, some jalapeno, limes for that nice tartness, and then some really cool stuff in here. This is ground cumin and a cinnamon stick. And last, a little bit of ginger. We're gonna start by quartering our tomatoes. And as we break these down, we're going to be taking out the seeds and that extra moisture in the center. These tomatoes have plenty of moisture in the flesh. We don't need to add to that. It's just gonna add to the reduction time. And we really don't need those seeds around. So all of that stuff, you just scoop that right out of there. You gotta bust through a little wall, just bust through the wall. Scoop all that stuff out. And then beyond that, I'm just gonna get rid of that little pithy core right there. This we can chop down into slightly more manageable sized pieces. Doesn't have to be real accurate because it's really going to break all the way down in the end. So again, we're just taking out the seeds. If you got any hard core pieces right here, you can get rid of that. And then a rough chop. All right, so we've got the seeds out, we've got the core out, tomatoes are roughly chopped. Now they're going into the porcelain enamel cast iron Dutch oven here. We're gonna begin to add the rest of our ingredients. Next, we're gonna take a couple of limes. We're gonna get all the zest off the outside of these so we can work this into the jam. And this really packs that lime flavor in there. And now that I've got the zest off of both of these limes, I'm gonna squeeze all their juices into the pot as well. Next, you're gonna get one jalapeno, or really however much you want as far as the heat goes. And I'm gonna actually lead most of these seeds in so that we can get a little bit extra heat out of here. And take out some of that bitter pith though. So just knock this down to nice small pieces. Then we're gonna get our fresh ginger and take the skin off of there. You can either cut it off or scrape it off. You can do this with a knife, with a spoon, with a vegetable peeler, any of the above will work. But what we're looking for in the end is about 1 tablespoon of minced ginger. We're also gonna add 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. So with your garlic and your ginger, you've got your aromatics, and what this is coming together as is almost a really nice salsa, except today we're gonna add about 1.5 cups of brown sugar, we're gonna add a little bit of cinnamon stick and some ground cumin, cook it down into a jam. All right, so we're gonna go right on the side burner of the Napoleon P500 RSIB. So we've got the super hot infrared burner here on the side, but we can really control that. We're gonna start high, we'll bring this thing to a simmer, then we'll kind of even things out, let it bubble its way along. It's gonna take probably about 30 to 45 minutes for this to reduce all the way down. The rest of the cooking that we're gonna do today, we're gonna do in the chamber on the Napoleon. I'm gonna set it up again today for charcoal cooking with our charcoal insert in place. I just love cooking over charcoal on this gas grill. It's just another element of flavor that you can add to your food, and it's so easy on the Napoleon P500. I've got us loaded up with some lump charcoal, so I'm just gonna turn on the burners that are directly underneath the charcoal, and this will just get the charcoal going. Once the charcoal's going, we can shut those burners off and just use the charcoal heat. So the jam's reducing, the charcoal's lit, the tri-tip roast, I'm not gonna marinate or brine, so we don't need to touch it quite yet. I'm gonna do this cream cheese spread next. Now, if you think about how we're building this sandwich, we've got the jam, which is sweet, it's tangy, it's got a little bit of heat. We've got the tri-tip, which is gonna be savory. It's gonna have big savory flavors, garlic, onion, that sort of thing. So what I want to complement this is something creamy and something a little bit salty. And we're gonna do that with a cream cheese spread that's also got some queso fresco, some fresh cilantro, and a little bit of green chili sauce. So we're starting off with 8 ounces of cream cheese. This is room temperature so that we can mix and spread it easily. I'm gonna add to that about a 1/4 cup of minced cilantro. Here's our queso fresco, nice and salty. I'm gonna do a couple tablespoons of Green-Aid. We give this stuff a mix, make sure it's evenly incorporated. And then we'll just set it aside at room temperature so that it's spreadable when we go to build our sandwiches here in a little bit. All right, we're finally gonna get to that tri-tip. Man, I love cooking tri-tip roast. It's such a great cut of meat. It's fairly lean, but it's really rich. And when it's cooked proper, it's incredibly tender. Before we can get it cooked properly, we gotta get it trimmed up. Now you can see we've got a decent amount of fat here. There's definitely some extra stuff that we don't need to be chewing on the top of here. If you wanna leave your fat cap on, go for it. It's just cooking, right? But this is all gonna be pretty chewy, so I would get rid of it. Now the other advantage to getting rid of some of that fat, obviously, is we get some seasoning down to the meat. And that is a pretty solid fat layer right there. All right, I'm not gonna go crazy on this, but we are gonna take it down to the meat there. Over here, I'm seeing some of this extra stringy stuff. We don't want any of that. And if you check this up close right here, you'll notice that that's some really tough, like silver skin material there. So we're gonna take that whole bit off. There's a little bit of meat involved there, but mostly it's just really chewy. All right, so there it is, all cleaned up. It's not hard to tell why they call it the tri-tip, right? You got this boomerang shape going on. But this is ready for some seasoning now. All right, we're gonna need a little bit of binder, so I'm gonna use this Green-Aid once again. Honestly, I can't get enough of this stuff. I'm putting it on everything these days. It's great on your eggs, it's great in burritos, great on tacos, and it's definitely great on tri-tip. Okay, so just a thin layer of sauce, and then we're gonna hit it with our rub, which today is the Oak Ridge Barbecue Santa Maria seasoning. And Santa Maria seasoning and tri-tip steak, these were made for each other. I mean, the flavors go together perfectly. This is the cut of meat that they're cooking out in California with the Santa Maria seasoning. So I'm not kidding when I say that these were designed to go together. All right, it's a nice fine seasoning. It's gonna need a few minutes to set up to the meat. Really work all that garlic and onion and black pepper flavor into the meat. So let's give this a few to set up and go check on the grill. All right, look at that charcoal rocking away. We definitely don't need any gas heat under there at this point. So we're just gonna slide the grate back over. This is pretty much ready to cook on anytime we're ready to cook on it. All right, our jam is simmering away. You can see the bubbles, they start to get bigger as it reduces. That means they're getting more syrupy. That means the reduction has gone further. And that's exactly what we're looking for. But at this point, you want to be really careful to make sure that you don't scorch it. So turn your heat down if you're rocking too hard, or you're going to end up with blackened crust around the edges. You want to go slow. All right, so this is 45 minutes or so into this process. You can see we've cooked out most of the excess moisture. This is a very syrupy consistency, and this is exactly where we want this to be. Now, we ended up with the heat on low to make sure we didn't scorch it. And I just want to transfer this to a bowl so that we can make sure to cool it down a little bit. If we leave it in this cast iron, it's just gonna stay hot, which would be all right too, but we want it to just be more room temperature rather than scorching hot. And of course, we can go ahead and fish out our cinnamon stick. All right, so we'll leave that there and get to grilling the tri-tip. Before we get the tri-tip down, just gonna hit the grates with a little bit of fat, try and prevent any sticking. Got that nice sizzle, that's exactly what we wanna hear when this goes on. All right, we're sitting at about 450 degrees on the inside of the grill. So if you're cooking this on your Yoder or something like that, that's where you want to set it, 450 with your grill grates. And the goal here is to get some really nice color on the outside. You want those grill marks, you want a little bit of char. We're gonna flip it and get that on both sides. And if we're not to 125 yet at that point, we move it in direct to finish. Now I really like where the consistency's at right here. This is thick but spreadable. If you find that it's too thick or too condensed, you just add a little water to thin it out, no big deal. Now I want to get a little bit of taste and see if we need to add some salt or any additional seasonings. That's really good. It's sweet, just a touch of heat, really not too much there. But I think a little bit of salt would go a long way with this. So we're gonna hit it with just a pinch. That should really bring everything out. All right, really nice color on there. We can go ahead and give this a flip and get some color on the other side. We're using these bolillo buns today for our sandwich. I really like these because if you listen, nice and crusty on the outside, but they're super soft inside. We're gonna add just a little bit of fat to the inside before we toast them, so spread a thin layer of mayonnaise. And you can do this on any bread that you're toasting, like in a skillet or on the grill. This works just like butter to add a little bit of fat, a little bit of extra moisture, and it crisps up really nice. All right, we got good color on both sides. We're gonna try and get a little color right over here now. Now we've got all the color we want on the outside of the tri-tip roast. So I'm gonna move it off to indirect heat. Over here, these two burners, they're completely off. So all the heat's gonna come from the left side. We're picking up no more color. We're just gonna raise up the internal temperature until we get to 125. So we gotta close the lid to let it finish out. Now we're just creeping up on 125, so we're gonna pull this any minute now, which is why I'm getting our buns toasted. Do not fall asleep on toasting your buns because they will scorch in no time. This is just perfect now. Creeping up on 125, we're gonna pull this thing off and let it rest. The tri-tip is off and rested. It's been 5 or 10 minutes now. We're going to get it sliced really thin and build our sandwiches. So take a look at this thing and you wanna look for which way the meat fibers are running, and you can see the muscle fibers right there, they're going this way. So we wanna go at a 90-degree angle. A lot of times with tri-tip, I'll cut it right in the middle because it's a long slice, and I'll show you just how that works, but there's our muscle fiber, here's our angle. And this is where it gets difficult to slice such a long slice, so it's often a good time to divide it. But here you'll see we got some good pink in the fat end, cooked all the way through at the thin end. That's a proper slice of tri-tip right there. So I'm just gonna divide this right here. And at this point, you'll have one end that's much more done and one end that's much more rare, which is great if people wanna pick and choose how they like their steak. And the aroma coming out of this right now, just fantastic. Now don't let this juice get too far from you. These slices, they should be dredged in all that juice because there's tons of flavor in there. All right, so you got your toasted bun. Bottom side, we're gonna go with the cream cheese spread. Top side, that's our tomato jam. And then we stack the steak. Thinly sliced so we can pile it high. And one last thing, for a little more tang, I've got some quick pickled red onions. Be sure to check out our tips and techniques video on how to pull these off, and I'll include the recipe along with the rest of this one. That's it right there. Have I ever told you guys sandwiches are my favorite food group? Look at that. Freaking beautiful. Just layer on layer. I gotta dig in. It's everything we planned for, guys. Excuse me, got a little messy. It's sweet, it's savory. The creaminess, I love the tang from the pickled onions. Can't do without the pickled onions. Great crunch from the bread, but it soaked up all those juices. That's ideal. You guys gotta go, I'm not done. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check out atbbq.com for all of the products featured in today's video, and we'll be sure to include those in the video description down below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comments section down below. And hey, let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to thesauce.atbbq.com. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.